So I'm going to summarize slightly, but the premise is, this person's kind of been pursuing fine the traditional way, saving through an ETF to reach FI, and is side hustle curious and has joined the community recently. And they're just talking about the shift in terms of being used to investing in kind of low risk, high diversity ETFs, and then taking a chunk of money out of that and putting it into a higher risk play, which is some sort of side hustle or side business, and how to deal with that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't view putting money into a side business as higher risk, if that risk can be appropriately mitigated. And what I mean by that is, if you have 6 months, living expenses, saving an emergency fund, if you're investing for the long term and you're doing that consistently, taking out a small amount of money or deferring money towards like a side business sort of fund to use to start your business, to me seems quite low risk if you have those other things taken care of. And the thing about, that I've always recognized is, you can't control the market, right? So you're kind of throwing money out there and buying into all these different companies in a broad, diversified, in index fund or ETF. But with your business, you're the one in control, which to me has always felt like the safest use of a dollar, because I can control the moving pieces as opposed to giving it to someone else. I can't control what Tim Cook at Apple does. Obviously he's a better business person than I am and knows more, and so I'm happy to invest my money there, and I don't have to do anything, right, as a passive investor. But in terms of starting a side business, you can really de-risk it significantly. It doesn't mean that your first idea is going to take off, but I think you can be very pragmatic, in your approach and how you use your money to launch a side business, and you can really protect your downside risk pretty considerably, because you're the one who ultimately chooses how much money you're going to spend, to launch it. So I don't think that having a side business or side hustle is for everybody, but I do think it's worth everyone trying it, because what I've generally found is people who didn't think they were entrepreneurs end up surprising themselves, and realizing that they can become an entrepreneur in the way that they couldn't have even imagined. Right? It's just it takes on a whole different meaning, and then I think it also, for a lot of people, it tends to, beyond the money, add a level of, it becomes a good creative outlet. It becomes a good way to keep learning new things, and it becomes a good way to connect with other people, and it just becomes a good facilitator for personal growth. So there's benefits of a side business, beyond the money. And I think really, if you fast forward, further into the future, I think that being an entrepreneur is increasingly less risky than, having a full-time job. And so diversifying the ways in which you're making money and thinking through how to not have all your eggs in one basket is for anyone pursuing financial independence is worth it.
It's something I think, like, what I've seen just working with quite a lot of people who are side hustle and side business curious is that, once they kind of see the light and they see the benefit it could have of having a side hustle, they're like kind of hooked into the journey. But then, it comes after the validation, they're ready to like lay down. This is a little bit Amazon FBA specific, but lay down that first kind of capital injection, and then they get the kind of nerves again. And yeah, I guess just on the back of that question, is there any like process or advice people should go through when they get the kind of jitters before they're about to actually, outlay the capital for a specific side business or side hustle?
I mean, I think it's one thing, there's a difference between being kind of like excited, anxious, and kind of fearful, anxious. I think those are two different things. And I think if you've done the work up front in terms of doing the research, understanding the product opportunity, the competition, and you've done that work, then ideally and hopefully you should be having more of the excited anxious and, confident anxious as opposed to the fearful. Like anything business related, you really have to be open-eyed and kind of non-emotional in some sense about the opportunity that you're evaluating or the market that you're evaluating. And I think sometimes people, especially early on, because they're so excited or they believe in something so much, they blind themselves to kind of the reality. And this you see all the time, in retail or in, restaurants, where people are like, I'm a good cook and I love food. I'm going to launch a restaurant. And, they understand that the margins on food are tight, but they don't really understand just how risky, of a proposition it is. So there's a massive difference between being like, I'm going to go spend $250,000, take out a loan and launch this, restaurant, on this corner in this city, than saying, oh, I'm going to spend, $1,000 ordering a product that I've really, really worked hard and thought about why this will work and could work. And so you can there's no sure things, and it's certainly easier to see the market opportunity the longer you do this. But if something's working for someone else, the FBA space, you can see what's selling, and why it's selling. And so then the question is like, what can you do that's different or better? And then, and why is it different and better? And so, you can de-risk everything. I think anything is going to come with some risk. So at some point you're going to have to make that choice, but you should feel confident in that choice because of the work that you've put in up front. And then if for some reason it doesn't work out, then you have to look back at your decision-making process and figure out why. Like what hole did you not see, or what did you miss? And I think a lot of, FBA gets a lot of flack because what ends up happening is a lot of people, subscribe to a particular blueprint. They buy a product that really isn't different or differentiated, or that they're, doesn't really have an opportunity. And then, they try to launch something that's just like, okay, why do you need another, wine opener, for example, or whatever, a corkscrew. So I think you can de-risk it, if you're smart up front.
Yeah, I love the premise that, the level of fear you have is a good gauge of the validation you've done. I think, you can always do more validation. And as you do more of that validation, you should notice kind of a change in that feeling. And that should be a good kind of telltale of kind of where you're at and what the next step should be. Cool. That brings us just about to time, guys. So yeah, thanks a lot for sharing your update and your progress, Claire. And thanks for the Q&A, Grant, and catch you all next week, guys.
Bye.
Bye, guys.